the government hesitant to do it? Nobody tonight, including those who have filed these stories, and M. Kevin who is sitting here, nobody here tonight is saying that the current government of our country has put together this potential target list or attempted to carry out surveillance. But somebody has, Mr. Suppal, somebody perhaps did make this list. Somebody did have that intention. This list also has not only journalists, but also politicians, not only from your party, but our current minister, who at that time was not a minister. Other MOS, aides of sitting ministers and chief ministers and deputy chief ministers. How can a country turn a blind eye to those kind of details and say, no, let an individual fight their own battle? Mr. Suppal.
Tanvi, I completely agree with you. I am amused by the replies given by Mr. Tuhin and Mr. Deshpatan Nigam. You see, suppose, let's assume that BJP or its government did not do this espionage. Let's assume that. But then the Chief Justice of India's office was bugged. The cabinet ministers were bugged. The election commission was bugged. Sitting chief ministers were bugged. Journalist and the leader of the opposition party was bugged. So it's a huge internal security issue. Your entire internal security apparatus is at stake. And this government is responsible for the security of this nation. It is sitting idle and waiting for somebody to file a FIR. The government's responsibility is to ensure that there is no breach in the security apparatus. There is no breach in the judiciary, in the election commission. And what is the government doing? You see, when this story broke, Tanvi, it was, I think, at 3:30, 3:20, 3:25. And 3:30, it rushed with a statement in the parliament. That same statement was repeated today by the IT minister. And that statement itself, without doing any investigation at the government level, they were ready with a denial, as if they knew everything, and the denial is only pro forma. And they say that this is to defame India. Today, Israel has instituted a senior ministerial inquiry. Israel is the ideological fatherland of BJP RSS. Now, is Israel also against BJP? Israel is also defaming India and doing it. Let us understand what they are implying at. This statement of the minister said, I'll read out, without subjecting a phone to this technical analysis, this is not possible to conclusively state whether it witnessed an attempted hack or was successfully compromised. This statement was picked up from Wire's copy, from Wire's report. But very conveniently, the government edited out the first part of the statement, which clearly said forensic test conducted as part of this project on a small cross-section of phones was revealed clear sign of targeting by Pegasus. The government, it picks up one statement from the report and tries to establish a case that no testing has been done. What is government there trying to hide? It's a national internal security matter. And why is Home Minister not replying it? What has IT Minister got to do with it? This is not a policy matter. Somebody bought a software. Do you know the price of the software? It is $80 million to espionage 10 mobile phones. $80 million. No private individual can have that amount of money. And if somebody is investing that amount of money in spying in India, then what is this government doing? Can't government track that person or an organization which is investing so much money? So this is not a case of what BJP says or what Congress says or what the journalists are saying. It's a case of internal security. Very clearly, the Home Minister is responsible for it. He should come to Parliament and reply. The entire defense of BJP is deniability. That we did not do it. Okay, you did not do it. Somebody did it.
Yeah, but Mr. Suppal, the government is saying there is no evidence. This whole controversy, similar one broke out in 2019 when WhatsApp said it. Not even media organizations that you would doubt it. WhatsApp said it. The government said, oh, we're going to look into it. We'll ask WhatsApp to tell us, give us more details, this, that, everything. Even the parliamentary panel that is headed by your party leader said, we're going to listen to everybody and we're going to look into this. This is about people's rights and people's privacy. What came out of it? Nothing came out of it.
Yes.
So if 2 years ago nothing came out of it, and for 2 years everybody forgot about it, what makes you think the government will do it now?
No, Tanvi, nobody forgot about it. Let me tell you, the government asked WhatsApp to give those numbers. WhatsApp gave 113 numbers to government. CERT did an inquiry investigation into it. It gave a report that there was a security breach. Then WhatsApp went to the court in California, international court. the company which makes Pegasus, NSO, there was a case against that company in California court by WhatsApp, Facebook, Google, and the Association of Internet. And the NSO said there that we only sell it to the sovereign nations, so we cannot be tried in a court. And in July itself, the court gave an interim order that NSO company can be, there can be trial against this company because there has been enough evidence of misuse of this. And today, the CEO himself said that if there is a misuse, we are trying to investigate it, and if found true, we'll put a ban on Pegasus. This is not what Congress party or the journalist or the wire is saying in India. This is the international. For last 2 years, the case is being pursued at various international levels. There was a independent study published by Washington Post which proved that in the Bhima Koregaon case, Pegasus virus was used to plant fake proof against those people who have been arrested in that case. So it is not that people have been silent. It's a complicated thing, and the government is in complete deniability. It does not carry out any investigation. It was not worried. 113 phones were spied upon in 2019 at the rate of $80 million per 10 phone. It is $800 million. Government was not worried about from where this money came. It never did its investigation in the last 2 years. It never did anything, and now they are saying there is no proof. How did you arrive at a conclusion that there is no proof? Can government put it up in the public domain? Can it call senior political leaders in the parliament? If it's a national security matter, you don't want to discuss it in a public platform. The rules provide that there can be a secret meeting, a confidential meeting called by either a home minister or prime minister or any other minister, and senior parliamentarians can be called to that meeting. The entire thing can be shared with them. The government is not doing that. There are ways to satisfy the nation that government has not ordered this inquiry or this is not an illegal espionage. There are ways, but government is in a complete deniability mode.
Okay. So let me bring in Tuhin Sinha now. Tuhin, even the responses right now have been so circumventing and evasive of the actual points that MK Venu, Congress Party, many others are wondering what the true facts are. We don't know if what government found or did not find in 2019 to dismiss it all out. Those details are not available. We still don't know if we officially use Pegasus, not use Pegasus, have we bought it, at what point did we buy it, and do we still use it? We don't know even now. Then what investigation did you do this time to outright dismiss it?
Basic knowledge that, to initiate an inquiry, the first thing anybody should ideally do, even if, crime is known or crime is assumed, is to file an FIR. Now, I know why the wire won't do it. The wire has a history of for which it has been pursued legally. You can check, the number of times they have been pursued for, they have been,
no,
legal
the government can order an investigation.
Let me come.
Police FIR is one option, Tuhin. The government can always order an investigation, bringing the most premier of its investigative agencies, the biggest of the experts, to look into this. What's stopping the government for setting up a special panel?
Tuhin, can I reply to you for a minute?
Credibility of spreading fake news, the government does not take that.
Just 1 minute, let Tuhin answer this.
This is the internal security matter, Tuhin. Government cannot wait for an FIR to ensure the security of nation.
60 seconds, after which you can respond, Mr. Suppal. Give me 60 seconds. Let me, respond to. So I heard Mr. Venu says he's waiting for 2 more rounds of investigative stories which he's going to bring out, and then he will consider filing an FIR. So shouldn't he wait for that amount of time before demanding an investigation from the government? Ideally, yes.
No,
but then,
how does it matter whether the wire has a lot more stories to do, or at what point does Mr. MK Venu decide if he wants to file an FIR? The question is very simple. Why is the government not interested in knowing why the numbers of the biggest of the politicians, sitting ministers, their deputies, their cooks and their gardeners, everybody's numbers were on this list?
Categorically that if at all any spying under the mandated provisions of Section 5 of the Indian Telegraph Act, that should be the end of the matter. Which clearly means that there is no, spying of the kind which the wires of the world want us to believe. And let me go a step further. The government will not spend the kind of obnoxious amount on spying Rahul Gandhi. If at all Rahul Gandhi has been spied upon, the answer lies in the 2008 MOU, mysterious MOU that Congress party signed with CCP in China. The government will not spend that kind of obnoxious amount on spying on Rahul Gandhi. We all know what he's up to.
I think I should react to this.
Why? Is he not a citizen of this country, just like the other 300 people?
Let me respond to this specific charge.
Okay, one by one. Yes, Mr. Sapal first, and then I'll go to MK Venu.
Yeah. First, about this political charge, Mr. Tuhin doesn't know. In 2014, his party members went to China for political training from Chinese Communist Party. Just Google it today. All your viewers can Google it; they'll get the answer. So don't try to divert the issue. Issue is who is ruling the country today? Who is in government? It's your party which is in the government. Are you certain sure that there's been no espionage in the military setup? There has been in Supreme Court, there has been in Election Commission, there has been in Cabinet, there has been in state government. Are you completely sure? On what basis have you arrived at this conclusion? And this is not simple phone tapping. This is taking control of the phone and using it to listen, to see. The cameras can be turned on. It can be used as a listening device, not just the telephonic conversation. It can be used to plant any material in your phone. It can be used to take any documents from your phone. Are you so sure that there has been no breach in the military setup of this country? What form of government are you running? Before saying no, please investigate. Please investigate and say no. We'll be with you. But you are not investigating. Within 5 minutes of a story breaking out, you come out with a statement which is wrongly worded, which misleads the country, saying that this is only to defame India. What has Rwanda got to do with its espionage? Rwanda is spying on its people to defame India. France instituting an investigation to defame India, or Israel doing it to defame India. Don't be so sensitive. We are responsible political party which is there.
Okay. Yes, Tuhin.
Right now, we are completely competent in handling any spying which may be taking place against the defense establishment. All details need not be provided because these are sensitive matters. All we are saying is that the story which has been broken out by Wire at this point of time needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. Let them come out with more evidence. Like I said, even the basics have not been established.
Why should Wire come out? Why should government find it out? That's our question. We know you could not find out till date who planted RDX in Pulwama. You don't. You're talking of those things. I can come to those also. So, but let's restrict ourselves to this issue. Why doesn't government be proactive in telling this nation?
Okay, I want to again take a step back. Request everybody to take a step back and really put it in perspective for everyone. And maybe the decision makers and the highest of the powers in our country are also missing this perspective. Mr. Venu, the point that you made at the beginning, the point that this is a larger global story that is unfolding, use of such softwares and the intentions which needs to be looked into. It could also be a client of NSO, which is not our country, but wants to spy on the people of our country.
Yeah, Tanvi, I'm again sincerely, my submission is, this is not about the Wire or Siddharth Vadrajan or Venu or some Prashant Kishore or another six people whose telephone has been found to be infected by Pegasus versus the government or people, opposition versus the government. It's not that. Please understand, this is a global problem, and as again I'm saying, Mr. Modi, Prime Minister Modi should become part of a solution to this problem. This is and as Deshnathan Nigam, he said the right thing. I take at face value that the government has not done it. Mr. Deshnathan Nigam said, suppose some enemy country has done it. So then, if that is the case, it's a national security issue. Tanvi, it's not about Venu or some few journalists or a few opposition leaders. It's not about that. We have to find out if it's an enemy government, then how is it happening? Who's brought in Pegasus? And then you have to question NSO also, which people have started doing. NSO has issued a statement yesterday, the company, admitting that their Pegasus supply to governments has led to human rights violation. They have admitted in so many words, and they've said that some sort of regulatory mechanism needs to be brought into. They've not mentioned any countries, and the Israeli government will also come under pressure. So I'm saying that Indian government can become part of a global effort. This is not about some government versus opposition or journalists versus the government. Please, I'm looking at the big picture.
I'll just add.
Mr. Jagdeep Chokar, I want you to comment on this as well. As somebody who always fights for more accountability and transparency in our democratic system, is there really any other way? Do you think it has to be left to individuals to go and file a police complaint and for a local police Thana person to start investigating such a large-scale global, highly sophisticated, as even tech giants put it, highly sophisticated surveillance system?
Should start with a clean slate. I do not even believe NSO when it says that it says only to governments or government agencies. I do not believe it says it to governments vetted by the Israeli government. We don't know that. All we know is there seems to be something which has happened over the last few years in which Indian citizens are involved, Indian officials may be involved, Indian politicians may be involved. Whether it has been done, the question of the government doing it, governments have been doing this kind of thing forever. Let us not be innocent about it. Government did it earlier on also. I remember when landline telephone used to be hacked. But the point is, in this case, there is apparently a foreign agency involved. Now, whether there is proof or not, this has to be established. It is as important that proof is established that it is not, the government is not involved. There is a saying that Caesar's wife has to be above suspicion. And therefore, I think it is appropriate that the matter be investigated by obviously and visibly independent body. I am actually not in favor of what Shashi Tharoor said today, that my committee will investigate and there is no need for a JPC. Let the parliament decide what it wants to do. But ultimately, when it comes to the question of an individual filing an FIR, I personally don't believe it is a FIR type of case. I think it has to have more significant and serious attention, and maybe some person might go to the court. I don't know, but I think the government cannot, and I agree that Mr. Nigam and the other gentlemen are not the representatives of the government. So what they say is on behalf of some other body which supports one particular view. So I think it is incumbent on the government to first of all come out with this, whether the government of India bought Pegasus or not. To me, that is a very simple question, and that unless that is answered categorically, at least I would continue to be concerned. Although I agree that there could be multiple things, we don't know what is going on. It is actually like COVID, and we don't know what is going on. Something or the other keeps coming up. So this is also that situation, but it is not which requires 10 years or 20 years of study of the impact of the virus. This, I think the government can investigate in a open, transparent, visibly transparent, demonstratively transparent way. Unless otherwise it will continue. We have many such issues, There has been before, there is now Rafael, there was St. Kitts, and there were all kinds of things. We live with all this. But I think it is not fair to the country at large to be under the shadow, however flimsy it may be. I think I will again repeat, Caesar's wife has to be above suspicion, and the government must first say whether they bought Pegasus or not. And if they don't say this, then everybody will, at least I will continue to wonder what happened. And the investigation by a kind of a completely independent entity is called for.
Can I comment, Tanvi?
So I just wanted to ask Mr. Desh Ratan Nigam again. I understand that you're saying that the individuals are free to, legally they have a recourse there. But what is your argument again, Mr. Nigam, to say that the government shouldn't look into it?
See, let me be very clear. This is a crime under Indian Penal Code as well as the IT Act. Very clear. And therefore, it has to go through police investigation and police has to register a crime. There are no two views about it. Secondly, the present evidence which is available in public domain, I don't know if Mr. Venu has some hidden evidence. This is no evidence in law, and law does not permit fishing inquiry. We are very clear in law that fishing inquiries cannot be permitted. And that's also the law is very clear. So let Mr. Venu, after collecting all kinds of evidence, initiate an action. And there is a specialized cell, cybercrime cell of Delhi police or in fact, the central government, they will look into it. But as of now, there is no evidence available which can be prosecuted. And it is India specific. I'm not going into global. These are country specific laws and country specific allegations. And each country has to act accordingly.
Then, so Tanvi, I'd like to correct Desh Ratan here. 10 Indian phones have been tested to be Pegasus infected. I think that prima facie that constitutes some evidence. Of course, it has to be taken to the police or court. That I agree with him on that. Yeah.
You know, after the show, you should straight
May I come in?
to the cyber cell and register an FIR without delay if you are convinced about it. But given your
May I come in?
FIR, I would take this with a pinch of salt.
Yes.
May I come in? There is this
Yes, go
attempt
ahead,
to
Mr.
reduce
Sapal.
this-
Yes.
Yeah, there is this attempt by BJP and its supporters to reduce this entire thing into an infringement of IT Act. What we are saying is this is not a simple case of infringement of IT Act. It's a case of a breach in internal security. Why is it so difficult to understand that the Chief Justice of India's office has been infiltrated? What is the relationship between the judgments that he gave, especially in Rafael and this espionage? What is the relationship between Lavasa's stand in election commission in 2019 election and this espionage? What is the relationship between the toppling of government in Karnataka and using spyware against the CM, deputy CM and former CM? What is the relationship between this espionage and the two ministers in the Modi cabinet? So this is not a simple matter of infringement of IT Act, which is the attempt is to basically show it as a very normal little exercise. Why is this entire world agitated about it? It's about the transparency, it's about the privacy, it's also about the fundamental right. 2017, Dr. Swami judgment has said the privacy is a fundamental right. Who will defend that fundamental right of citizens? Who will defend the fundamental right of MK Venu? It is the government of India. Why are you asking somebody A, B, C to go to police and then say my rights have been violated? Why are you expecting somebody to go to court and say that India's national security has been compromised? This is a more severe thing. Let us understand.
Let me answer
if
Mr.
BJP
Sapal.
has not done it, if Modi government has not done it, then please advise your party to come up front, join hands with everyone and let's investigate. We are giving you benefit of doubt that you have not done it. But if you have not done it, then please join hands with everyone. There have been JPCs in past on various issues. There have been collective investigations on such issues. Please, why are you taking a stand that nothing has happened? You have not investigated. The government has not investigated. This is dereliction of duty by the government. The governments are not run like this.
Can I come in?
And let me just point out, please, why it is so important. Again, it's not about one individual or two individuals. Yes, just coming to you. It's not just about one individual or two individuals or who that individual is, whether it's MK Venu or Prashant Kishore and Rahul Gandhi, and hence maybe we don't want to care about it. It's about what can happen. if you look at the global reportage, the sense that one gets is that these spywares are out there that can be used against citizens of any country. And what are they used again for? They're not just used to say, okay, it's, an individual would just assume it is to say, oh, they're listening into my conversations or they're reading my text messages. Yes, they're listening to your conversations. They could be listening to read. They could be reading your text messages. They could be watching you because they have access to your phone cameras now. They could be reading your emails. They could be looking at everything which is there on your phone. They could be tracking your location every single time when you move from one to the other, where you go. Even when you're not using your phone, they can hear you, see you, everything. They can also plant information, plant evidence in your phone. That's how highly sophisticated these spywares are. That is why they are so dangerous, which is why any government should be concerned that twice in 3 years now, this kind of a story has emerged. Once by a global network of journalists, once by one of the biggest software tech giants that we have in the world, who right now, as we speak, are also embroiled in a legal battle with NSO. So the story has gone on since 2019, and the threats are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people will be vulnerable to it. So I fail to understand, Tuhin Sinha, why the government doesn't care about us.
You know, I have been hearing, why does the government not specify that it has not purchased Pegasus? When the government on the floor of the House says that if at all any spying has happened, it is under the mandated provisions, the answer is self-explanatory. You know, the problem is the Congress just doesn't get it. So number one, we have not used Pegasus. That is a fact which has been clearly stated when we say that whatever spying has taken place, it is in the existing, as per the existing provisions of Section 5 of Indian Telegraph Act. Now, I repeat.
So you could use Pegasus legitimately. Who says you can't use Pegasus legitimately?
Sorry?
Please say it that you have purchased it. The government has purchased it.
Who says you can't use Pegasus legitimately? You can use it legally or illegally.
Pegasus, you know, when we, the entire Section 5 of Indian Telegraph Act requires certain provisions to be followed. And Pegasus is a different entity altogether. So, you know, I don't know how many times the Congress needs to be explained simple basics, which we've seen in the. We have not used Pegasus.
To him that the government has purchased it. Please say it in as many words.
No. Now coming to why the investigation is not being ordered, I have said this before. Given the credibility of the wire, we will wait for more, more evidence to come forth, because as Desh Ratan ji has very clearly explained, what is available with the wire right now does not constitute evidence, and in law we have no scope for fishing or roving inquiry. Isn't this what the Supreme Court had said to the Congress on a previous charge? Now, third point is, I repeat.
I don't know what you mean by given the credibility of a media organization. I didn't know that the government actually judges stories basis who is reporting it, not basis what can be the impact of those stories and what is the evidence that this story really gives or shows. And when the claim is that they have investigated and found traces of Pegasus in phones right now, I don't know where this doubt over credibility comes. Quick comment from Desh Ratan Nigam. Yes, go ahead, please.
Tanvi,
immediately after your show, I would go to the cyber cell and report the matter. If you say this with such certainty, what is stopping you from initiating the next step?
Because you are in the government, it's your duty.
Okay, now we're just going in circles by asking that question and again and again. Yes, Mr. Desh Ratan Nigam, please.
Tanvi, let me tell you, as somebody who was a science student and somebody who's also a political analyst and a lawyer, government should not say what software it has purchased and what it has not purchased, because it will be open to attacks, cyber attacks, and the weaknesses can come out in the open. So I'm not for the government to tell you which software it is operating, which is not operating. This will compromise national security and internal security, and that would be a very serious issue. Now, so far as fundamental right issue is concerned, Let me tell you, as a lawyer, if somebody comes to me whose fundamental rights are violated, first thing we do is file a writ petition in the Delhi High Court to protect his fundamental rights or legal rights. That options are open for the Mr. Venu, and he can surely exercise it, all those options. And even then, you know what the court will do? Court will direct under the provisions of law.
I agree with you, and that
police
option
to
is there.
investigate.
Anybody can use it. Jagdeep Chokar can use it. Mr. M.K. Venu can use it. Rahul Gandhi can use it. And even Prashant Kishore can use it, and anybody else whose name is there on the list. My point is not that. There can be this much and a lot more that is not known. As the government who's been elected to power, voted to power to look out for the interests of its citizens, when the story emerges that a larger number of people may have been targets of potential surveillance, I believe it is the government's responsibility as well, especially when these names comes from segments of constitutional posts, sitting ministers, big politicians, big activists, big champions of transparency, accountability and human rights, and journalists. It is, I believe, the responsibility of the government to stand up for each and every citizen of this country, whether those citizens are journalists or of any other profession, whether those citizens follow your ideology or don't follow your ideology, whether those citizens are critical of you or are completely backing of you. All of that doesn't matter. What matters at the end of the day, that there is a very, very strong possibility and evidence available that attempts were being made to spy on Indian citizens. And as the elected government of this country, we hope that the government makes an attempt to find out who was behind it. That's what we want to know. Did this happen? And who was behind it? Completely out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.